We are going to move into the legs now, and we're making our way almost entirely through the figure, which is super cool. And let's talk legs. So here we go. The place that I am going to be quoting from primarily today is Stan Prokopenko and Bridgman. The book by Michael Hampton that I brought it to class a bunch of times. But at any rate, let's just move forward with this. So the first thing that we want to talk about is this construction. I'm going to talk about the rib cage and the pelvis. And a thing to notice when we construct the rib cage and the pelvis like this is that you are actually going to see the bottom of this box, and you're actually going to see the top of this box. And that happens, you'll recall when we draw a pelvis, sometimes we draw a bean shape like this. When we draw the torso, you can kind of draw a bean shape like that. And if you put a box in here for the pelvis and a box in here for the rib cage, it kind of makes sense that when you're looking at it this way, you'll see the bottom here and you'll see a little bit of the top there. And when we're drawing a male figure, the rib cage up top is bigger, the pelvis is longer and thinner. So down, if we're drawing back view, down a little ways is this triangle of the sacrum. Then we have the crack, and it actually ends there. Here's how we connect on a male to the rib cage. And then the legs like this. Right here, this widening, there's a bone in there. Comes out to about right there. It's the trochanter. And so this here is the top of the pelvis. This moves into shadow. But this is actually where the fold on the leg is. Up top, you have another muscle right here. That's the gluteus medius, the gluteus maximus right there, and then into leg muscles. So there's one muscle group there, there's another one here, there's a bone right there. We have a muscle group here, and muscles here and here, but we'll talk about them in a little bit. So let's talk about this in side view. and the leg will come from here. Notice that if this is the pelvis here, the leg doesn't start there. It starts about here. There's the abdominal muscles coming down like that. In our simplification of the leg, we generally just draw it as a cylinder. Maybe a tapered cylinder. It's getting thinner as it goes from here to here. So then if we draw the female, same way, part of what we're going to do is we're going to make the hips wider and the ribs narrower. In the female, you don't have the same structure of oblique muscles, and so this will have a tendency to tilt kind of inward, and by here, so here we see the bottom side, and here we see the top side. And in a woman, actually, because a woman's spine is more flexible than a man's, you'll actually see more of a bottom side and more of a top side, and the bean will be more like this. So again, going to the top of the pelvis and stepping down a little bit for the triangle, that's the sacrum, and then the separation between the gluteus maximus muscles. The legs connect here, again, so we'll start out with a tapered cylinder like this. So part of what happens, part of the justification for the thigh gap is that the pelvis is actually further apart. It's wider and leaves space here on a woman more so than on a man. Okay. On the skeleton, you've got the trochanter comes to here, comes like this. There's a bone in here that sits like this. And then it aims inward that way. And you kind of see it here, but in the case of a woman, you end up with, so the widest part for a man is at the trochanter, but a woman, the widest part is just below there. Okay. And then you'll have shadow here. Then we'll do front. And what we're really looking for, we're looking for an understanding of the leg connections right now. And now if we're looking at it from the front, what we'll see is we'll see the top plane here, and we'll see some bottom plane of that. So the legs don't start at there. The legs start here. So let's put some cylinders in. We can assume that there's that kind of underwear shape. The leg starts here. Here's a cylinder. Okay. From the cylinder, from this point here, there's this indentation right there. We'll go a little further into that. The abdominal muscles end in there, and then this is where genitals are. Female front view, wider pelvis. Again, on the front view, we're going to see the top plane. And the bottom plane of the rib cage. The kind of brief shape, the shape of underwear. And here's the cylinder for the leg. So, wide gap here. The fat gathers below the pelvis at about this level. Another cool piece for the leg. Yeah, this is a good diagram. This is a good diagram to work from, okay? And we'll go into a little bit more detail. Remind me, one thing that the leg very frequently is described as an S-curve. You see this S-curve? And that can be very helpful when drawing a gesture of a leg. If you just have the bean shape and then you draw an S-curve, it can get you pretty close. I'd like to discuss the shape of the thigh then. Quick gesture. And we'll say that this is a front view. So we can start a pose, we can start a drawing as fluidly as this, and then go back in and start trying to get it to be more volumetric. So when we move out of the stage of our drawing that's about designing the drawing, and now we move into the stage of the drawing that's about structuring the drawing, okay? We can start with cylinders. And then what we'll find is that the upper leg has a couple of really characteristic variations from the cylinder that if you use, they really increase the realism of your drawing. So everything that I've got drawn here, you should understand pretty well. That's just from the last lesson. That's just from the last couple of minutes. Okay, so one of the things that happens, I want to talk to you about a shape that happens here, about a line that happens here, and about a shape that happens here, okay? And that's going to be the rest of what we're going to talk about today. So there are a set of muscles in here, and they're called adductor muscles. And when you see a thigh, like if we take and we imagine this shape to be a thigh, and this will be the inside, and this will be the outside, okay? And that'll be the top, and that'll be the bottom. Okay, so this here, what that represents is there's a muscle that starts here, and it comes down, and it actually connects to the knee. It goes all the way down and connects to the knee, and it kind of breaks the leg into two shapes. So you have all of this muscle group in here, and then you have this muscle group out here. Okay? These muscles are called adductors, and these muscles out here are the quads. So you have this here, which actually has a plane. It actually makes a side plane, and it comes down, and we can think of it like this. kind of ribboning down. And if we want to change the shape of the form there, and then as you move over into the adductor muscles themselves have a top plane right there. So that's the sartorius, cutting over and along. That's the side plane of the adductors. And it leaves this, sorry, this has to go like that. It leaves this triangle in here, which will usually be in shadow. So let's do a gesture, a kind of a quick gesture again. There's a character. And say we've got our design. I'm going to start to try to add some volume to the leg. We know that we've got an adductor in here. There's a cylinder of the leg. And there's, the leg starts here. And this is a sartorius, which comes down and connects like that. That's the high butt muscles. So then the next thing to talk about is the muscle group that goes right here. And what you're going to end up with, there's a kind of a cool thing that you can do right in there. There's this shape like this. And it's like a house that got slanted, like if you have a house. And you take this side and you pull it way up. So what happens is there's this shape in here. It goes like this, and that's the tendon. And it connects through the kneecap. And on the inside, right in here, there's this is this giant muscle group in here. okay? And it connects, it's got 3 connections. It's got one here, and one here. And the inside one is lower. And they all connect up here. So you'll see in comic books, the inner one, the inner muscle, comes to here. The middle muscle goes way high there. And Dave Finch says these are all the shape of footballs. He just draws them as footballs. And the outer muscle doesn't go this low. It connects on there. Like that. And so, you know, this is like a greatly exaggerated person. And down in here, we connect through the kneecap. I've got just a minute longer and I want to use it. You know, there's a muscle. You see this right here on the front side? That's the tensor fasciae lata. And right here, I'm sorry, that's the gluteus medius. But this guy right here, there's a muscle right there. And it forms this. It forms this point that the leg cuts in, and you can see it bouncing there. So I want to, for the rest of this session, I want to do a sketch of an upper leg, kind of trying to show you how I would use this information that I just put out. So I have a gesture, and now I'm lining up and I'm structuring it. I know that the adductor muscles are in here. From up here, the sartorius comes down, and it's going to connect through into the knee, in behind the knee. There's the gluteus medius, the tensor fasciae lata, kneecap is right there. And the quadricep on the inside is wide. The middle quadricep is kind of short. And the lateral one is a little shorter than the inside one. So this one ends there, this one ends up here. And that's probably plenty. Then there are these tendons down through the knee, which all we need to know is that they're kind of straight lines once you get into the knee. On the edge, the knee is kind of boxy. From here, the sartorius, which is going to wrap and ribbon around into the side plane of the knee. That makes a separation between the adductors. The adductors have a side plane. Sartorius. Quads. The inner is the lowest, the middle, and the exterior. Again, I'm kind of overdoing it. Okay, we'll continue this later.